Okay, CMQ investors, this is Chris Franco. Thank you for tuning in. I have, well, first of all, it's great to be back. I'm going to be back consistently now, and I'm just kind of getting warmed up again. So I'll have a lot of videos like this where I just come to you with as little editing as possible and try to give you as much value as possible in the time that I have. So if you enjoy the content, as always, please like it, subscribe, leave a comment, let me know what you think. I want to cover the latest in Sam Bankman-Fried's testimony because he was cross-examined on Monday and into Tuesday, and I want to kind of just recap everything because I know there's going to be a jury that will decide if he's innocent or guilty. Then he'll be hopefully sentenced because I think it's pretty clear he did what he's accused of doing, and justice will prevail. So before we go any further, I just want to say I don't root for anybody going to prison. I'm not a fan of anyone losing their freedom. I think everything I've read about this guy, though, and I'm going to be as diplomatic as possible. He's just, he really did all the stuff that you're not supposed to do with other people's money when they deposit it in your account. So let me get into this. Let's talk about it, and we'll analyze it. So it says here that Sam Bankman-Fried was grilled in a crucial day on the witness stand. The FTX founder faces hours of uncomfortable questions and sidesteps some answers in fraud trial. He faced his biggest test in the legal hot seat this past Monday as he was grilled by a federal prosecutor who was intent on poking holes through the FTX founder's claims that unfortunate management mistakes, not criminal activity, were to blame for the cryptocurrency exchange's collapse. The fallen crypto star, testifying in his own defense in New York, began by confidently answering questions from his own lawyer, saying he had been honest with customers and investors and believed his business empire was in good financial shape. The trial proceedings shifted quickly after Assistant U.S. Attorney Danielle Sassoon began her cross-examination and sought to confront Bankman-Fried with a litany of his past public statements, whose truthfulness she questioned. Now, I don't know anything about being a lawyer, or I should say, actually I do, but I'm not a lawyer. I don't have any legal expertise. But what I would imagine here is there was pretty damning testimony from his co-conspirators who have agreed to cooperate. And I would imagine that this exchange here is really just, or the main part is trying to prove that the co-conspirators who testified against him are credible, and that they are not, acting in some sort of, perverse incentive system that would make them lie on Sam Bankman-Fried. That's just my take. So Sassoon asked Bankman-Fried about past statements disparaging regulators. She asked about instances when he had appeared to overstate FTX's safeguards against risk and downplayed the exchange's relationship with its sister hedge fund, Alameda Research. She asked him about the reasons he never cut his hair. Sam Bankman-Fried responded dozens of times that his memory was foggy and he couldn't recall making many of the statements Sassoon referenced. He also quibbled over how the prosecutor phrased her questions. As some of their exchanges grew testy, jurors shifted their glances back and forth between the two. Drama. U.S. District Judge Lewis Kaplan, who's presiding over the case, at one point interjected in frustration with Bankman-Fried and said, "Look, could you just answer the question instead of trying to ask the questioner which he's referring to?" The judge said. Okay, Bankman-Fried responded. The exchanges came on one of the crucial final days of a trial that has been unfolding all month on charges that Bankman-Fried, 31 years old, stole billions of dollars from customers and defrauded investors and lenders. FTX collapsed in November of 2022, and Bankman-Fried was indicted a month later. Typically, criminal defense lawyers advise their clients not to take the witness stand because of the perils of cross-examination. But many legal observers saw testifying as Bankman-Fried's only hope of changing the momentum after his closest former colleagues and friends testified against him. Those one-time confidants told jurors they helped him siphon money to cover risky bets by Alameda, pay back lenders, make political donations, and you bet it, you guessed it, purchase lavish real estate. The relationship between FTX and Alameda is a central part of the case. Star prosecution witness Caroline Ellison, the former chief executive of Alameda Research, and Bankman-Fried's former girlfriend, previously testified that she worked with him to doctor the hedge fund's balance sheets and use FTX customer funds to cover Alameda's deficits. Sassoon pressed Bankman-Fried on the relationship between the two entities including what prosecutors allege were Alameda's secret and unique privileges to borrow virtually unlimited sums from FTX. Sitting here today, you don't recall assuring customers that Alameda generally played by the same rules as other customers on FTX? Sassoon asked.
I'm not sure,
Bankman-Fried said. To refresh his memory, Sassoon cited past statements in which Bankman-Fried had said Alameda's account was like everyone else's, including in comments to the Wall Street Journal. She also cited a past Bankman-Fried comment in a CNBC article where he was quoted as saying that Alameda was a, quote, neutral piece of market infrastructure, end quote, that had no conflicts of interest with FTX. Asked if he recalled saying that, Bankman-Fried answered,
only vaguely. I'm not saying I didn't say that,
he said. God, this guy, not a fan. In another exchange, Sassoon repeatedly asked Bankman-Fried if he sought access to an FTX database after the company filed for bankruptcy. He said several times that he didn't know what she was referring to. Other times, Bankman-Fried was grilled over lavish spending, including how he bought his favorite video game company for $23 million and approved private jets to fly Amazon packages to the Bahamas, where FTX was headquartered. Now, before we go any further, wasn't this guy supposed to be like Mr. We need to save the planet? But you were using private jets to fly packages? Like, talk about not environmentally sound. Anyway, I'm not surprised. He acknowledged buying the company, which I'm not sure what the name of the video game company was, by the way. He also said that he authorized the Amazon packages, but didn't know how much the shipments cost. Sassoon separately challenged Bankman-Fried's past comments in which she promoted FTX as a crypto as a crypto exchange open to regulation. She showed him a message he privately sent to a reporter after FTX's collapse in November 2022, in which he said, F regulators.
F regulators. Regulators?
Bankman-Fried said he didn't recall making the remark. Not surprised. The prosecutor appeared to be goading Bankman-Fried at certain moments, pointing out FTX's meteoric rise, his one-time status as a billionaire, and his college degree from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, or MIT. You think of yourself as a smart guy, she asked.
In many ways, not in all ways,
he replied. Sassoon also dove into Bankman-Fried's public image as a shaggy-haired boy genius who wears T-shirts and shorts. By the way, the media totally ate that up. He had previously testified under direct examination that it wasn't a purposeful appearance. Rather, he said, he wore shorts because they were comfortable, and that he didn't get a haircut because he was too busy working long days without breaks. Sassoon showed him a 2022 New York Times article that appeared to contradict his account and indicated the messy hairdo was part of a cultivated look. A former FTX colleague recalled in the article that Bankman-Fried said getting a haircut would be bad for business and that it was important for people to think he looked crazy. I knew it. It's all an image. He knew exactly what he was doing. It's all phony. Phony baloney. Did you put out any statement denying what was published by the New York Times? Sassoon asked. Bankman-Fried again drew a blank, saying he didn't recall reading the article. He's expected to face further cross-examination on Tuesday, which I am unaware of what he said, so let's take a look. This is again from the Wall Street Journal. I love this publication. I subscribe myself. I have no incentive to tell you to subscribe to it, but I highly recommend it. It's great journalism. It says here, Sam Bankman-Fried's lawyers seek to regain ground in FTX trial. So we're still in this cross-examination. Let's get into it. This is another little short article here, and I've not read it, so we'll react to it. Sam Bankman-Fried's lawyers rested their case Tuesday after seeking to rehabilitate the FTX founder's credibility from the prosecutor's two-day grilling. Let me make this a little smaller. Okay, sorry guys. There we go. Bankman-Fried, dressed in a gray suit. It'd be funny if he had the suit pants cut off at the knees. Like, I just like shorts. Floundered through the end of Assistant U.S. Attorney Daniel Sassoon's cross-examination. Good for U.S. Attorney Daniel Sassoon. Whoever she is, good for her. I'm happy to hear that. For a second day, Sassoon walked Bankman-Fried through balance sheets, communications, and tweets, again highlighting inconsistency. So to my earlier point, it's showing that he's the one with the credibility problem. So his claims that someone's lying on him, it's like the liar calling someone else a liar. And this is a proven liar versus him saying like, well, yeah, you get the idea. She portrayed the inconsistencies as outright lies between the defendant's public statements and his private knowledge. Bankman-Fried repeatedly told jurors he couldn't recall many of his past statements, so there's a theme here. He said he couldn't remember the exact timeline of things. Defense attorney Mark Cohen, so this is Bankman-Fried's attorney, sought to elicit testimony to explain his client's evasiveness. He asked about reasons for his foggy memory and his use of a private jet and his contempt for regulation. "You used the phrase F regulators," Cohen said. "Was that the full extent of the chain?"
It wasn't,
said Bankman-Fried, adding that he felt his efforts to work with regulators might have only led to more bad regulation.
I was somewhat frustrated,
he said. Meanwhile, by the way, this guy gave himself a $1 billion loan, give or take, that he didn't have to pay back. So, I'm glad he was concerned with this, but he was also siphoning money from people's accounts. What a guy. Cohen asked about the huge amount of evidence in the case, suggesting his client couldn't possibly remember every document and his many media interviews. But I would like to know, does he remember where the money went? The billions that he took for himself, that he loaned himself. Bankman-Fried told the jury that he talked to about 50 reporters during the time between FTX's collapse and his arrest, typically preparing between 30 seconds and an hour for each interview. When he testified before Congress, others helped him prepare his testimony. Bankman-Fried's testimony, which formed the bulk of his defense team's presentation, is likely crucial to jurors' determination of whether to find him guilty of fraud and other charges. About half of the jurors watched Bankman-Fried as he spoke. Some scribbled notes and others gazed at the floor. One man closed his eyes. Damian Williams, the Manhattan U.S. attorney who has given priority to prosecuting cryptocurrency cases, sat in the front row of the courtroom gallery. Bankman-Fried again answered some of the prosecutor's questions by quibbling with their premise. When asked about an $8 billion hole in the balance sheet When asked about this $8 billion hole in the balance sheet of Alameda Research, he said that hole wasn't the word he would use. He said he couldn't speak with exact confidence about whether some FTX customers outside of its sister hedge fund had special privileges. Okay. Sassoon asked if it was Bankman-Fried's practice to maximize making money even with the risk of going bust.
It depends on the context,
he replied. He later added,
with respect to some of them, yes.
Sassoon concluded her cross-examination by playing a recording of a November 9th all-hands meeting in which Caroline Ellison, the former chief executive of Alameda Research and Bankman-Fried's former girlfriend, spoke with Alameda staffers. Ellison, her voice halting, said she had talked about Alameda's use of customer funds with Bankman-Fried and two of his top deputies. Miss Ellison identified you, Gary and Nishad, as her co-conspirators, correct? Sassoon asked. She showed jurors a document from December 25th of 2022 in which Bankman-Fried appeared to be analyzing his own potential legal jeopardy and assessing how the government viewed his alleged conspiracy. While it was public that Ellison and Wang were cooperating with prosecutors, Bankman-Fried wasn't sure if Singh, a former FTX executive, would be charged. They don't seem to be keeping a seat warm for him as a defendant, the document said. You wrote that, Mr. Bankman-Fried?
I think so,
he said. Singh, who later pleaded guilty, testified for the government earlier in the trial. Almost done here, guys. Later, Bankman-Fried's lawyers referenced a photograph of Bankman-Fried on a private jet, reclining with his eyes closed. The prosecution had showed the jury the photo as an example of excess spending. Cohen asked Bankman-Fried if you remember the photo.
A very flattering one,
Bankman-Fried said sarcastically, before agreeing that using a private jet was a valid business expense. It was very logistically difficult to travel between the Bahamas and a few places, chiefly Washington, D.C. After the defense attorney wrapped up, Sassoon told the judge she had no more questions. Bankman-Fried took a long swig from his water bottle and he stepped down for his final time from the witness stand. Well, based on everything I've read about this case, I've read, the indictment, the discovery. I would imagine he's going to be found guilty. I don't know how. He has no excuse, and it's not. You can't get out of something because you didn't know. I think that's the case anyway. And furthermore, the things that he did with that money that he siphoned out of Alameda were things that enriched himself, whether it's the real estate purchases. He was living very lavishly. I don't think the private jet is necessarily that important. I think sending yourself Amazon shipments on a private jet says something, but, just kind of spending like a lunatic. And, You know, it's funny, that one video we watched where he's driving, you know, he's like, I have a Toyota. Apparently he had a whole bunch of other cars as well. Yeah, this guy's a total phony. He's a bad guy. And as investors, we have to look out for people like this, because this is not the last Sam Bankman-Fried. And I think I'll leave us with this. You know, as long-term investors who want to build wealth in a reliable way through compound interest, you know, consistent, you know, reasonable investing and with a long time horizon, you know, one thing that ruins that is when you interrupt the compounding process, and nothing will do that worse than, you know, investing your money with a fraud. And unfortunately, Sam Bankman-Fried, in my view, is that. And, you know, I'll let the jury decide. But if you have any expectations, if he's found guilty, how many years you think he'll get, let me know in the comments. Subscribe if you haven't. Appreciate you guys tuning in with me. It's good to be back. I'm just getting warmed up. And please like the video if you enjoyed it, and we will talk soon. All right, everybody. Later.